TorahAnytime.com.
To babies, giving names to children, which on the one hand there's no clear set of halachas and Shulchan Aruch about it, but the Gemara makes the statement here that Menola Dishma Garim, that somehow a name is Garim something in the baby, and it's a little spooky. Kilu, the whole baby's asidus has to do with giving a name. It's not to understand that it should be that so strong. There's a Pnei Yeshua here on the daf, which, as I said, there's no hilchis, so it's hard to look up halachis. There's a Pnei Yeshua that almost 40 years ago I showed her a palm with a shiloh naming one of my children, which we agreed is halacha l'maisa. So I'd like to share it with you. I was naming one of my children, and I was actually naming him after a Rebbe who had passed away. But the name in my Shveres Mishpacha happened to be a name that was like an old Zayda's name, that was a popular name in the family. So my Shveres said, "Oh, good, everyone will think it's named after the Zayda." As we thought, "Oh, it's great, everyone will think we're naming after..." So it made me a little uncomfortable. Everyone will think, like you give a name, everyone will think it's misleading. So I don't know. Since then, I've had many times where people approach me that they have to give a name, and the parents insist that they give a name, but they don't want to name after the person. Either the person maybe wasn't from, or the person wasn't nice, or they don't want to name after the person. So the question is, can you set up a situation where everyone thinks you're naming after one person, and you yourself are not naming after that person? I tell people you have to give a name. If it's a Tanakh name, you're safe. You have to give a name. Zayda was named Moshe, let's say, and you want to name after him. So you have in mind Moshe Rabbeinu or Moshe Feinstein, or you have in mind someone else. Who cares what people think? On the other hand, it seems to be Gnevas Das. You're misleading people. So when this came up, I showed her palm this Pnei Yeshua. The Gemara here says that Leah named her first child Reuven, and the Gemara says why. Amra Leah said, "Ru'u ma bein b'ni leben chami." Look how better my son is than my father-in-law's son. Why so? Ilu ben Chami, my father-in-law, that says, Esav, my father-in-law Yitzchak's son, Esav, Afagav de Midaite Esav Ne'la B'chiruseh, even though he willingly sold his B'chayra, so Esav gave away the B'chayra, and then he hated Yaakov for taking the B'chayra from him. And look at my son, I guess she knew B'Nevuah, that Reuven, this week's Parshas Vayechi, the Bechira was taken away from him. D'ksiv b'chala yitzui aviv, nidna b'chirasa b'nei Yosef, afil achi lo yekne bei. D'ksiv yishmaru b'mitzlei miyadam. So she said, look, Reuven is going to lose the Bechira to Yosef and not hate Yosef. And not like Esav, who gave away the Bechira and hated. So that's what it says in the Gemara. She called him Reuven, Ruma ben Bini ben Cham. So the Maharsha he asks that it's a steer to a pasuk. How could the Gemara say a reason? The pasuk says Beferish, she named V'yikashvei Reuven. It says because Ra Hashem ba'ani, Hashem saw my pain, that I'm the slua, and He gave me a child. Yavani Ishi, now my husband's going to love me.
Is that lehepa?
What?
Use the lashon lehepa on Akra. Is that the opposite?
Is it lehepach? I mean, it's different. It's not lehepach. I hear. Okay, I hear what you're saying. So it's not the opposite. It's just different. Okay, I don't know. So anyway, so this is the Maharsha. The Maharsha is this kasha. Pnei Yeshua brings the teretz. He doesn't say from who. He says Shemati b'shem Gadol Echad. It must have been I don't know why sometimes they write the name, sometimes they don't write the name, but he says Shemati b'shem Gadol Echad, a teretz. Teretz is, in her heart, Leah named Reuven for the Gemara's reason. In her heart, she said, I want to name Reuven Tzra Hashem, Reima ben Benila ben Chami. But Yaakov is going to ask, why are you picking that name? She'll have to tell Yaakov, because because Reuven, he's going to lose the Bechorah to Yosef, and he's not going to be angry. She didn't want to. She didn't want to tell Yaakov that she knows b'nevuah that Rachel will have a child, and Rachel's child to get the Bechorah instead of my child. And she didn't want to say that. She didn't want to belittle her. She had now an improved chance with Yaakov. So she didn't want to tell Yaakov the real reason. So therefore she told Yaakov, Rosh Hambani. And that's how she publicized the name. But it wasn't the true reason. The true reason is the reason she had in her heart. So I told her, Pam, you see from this Pnei Yeshua that you're allowed to tell people one reason for the name, and in your life you have a different reason for the name, and it goes according to what whoever is choosing the name, the father or mother, whatever you choose. The real reason is what you have in your heart, even though you're misleading everybody for a different reason. So what? You're right. These are all shalom bayis reasons. They don't want to name after their great grandfather or something. All because of these reasons. So this is what Sir Paul was asking. It's a good makar that you can tell people one reason and you have another reason. Certainly you're not even telling them; just they're assuming a different reason. That it's mutter. Sir Paul was asking. Now there was a quirk in this.
What do you do by the speech when you explain?
When you give the speech, you speak out to Pnei Yeshua. You speak out to Pnei Yeshua. So there a quirk in this is very interesting. I had somebody in my shir recently who had to give a name after a Zayda. So if it's one name, it's easy. The name is Yaakov, so you have Reb Yaakov. The name is Moshe, you have Reb Moshe. The name is Aaron, you have Reb Aaron. But it's two names. It's very hard to find another gadol who had the two names. So I always do as you go to the Yisroel Chachma, you could enter in the search a name, and it's a real mechaber of Sfarim. That's a Chachma has 80,000 Sfarim, and you put in the name. Let's say there's a double name. You put it in. Usually, it pops up somebody who had that name. So you say, I have an Adam Gadol. It doesn't work so well with women's names. They didn't write too many Sfarim. At least they didn't publish it in their names. But for men's names, it works. So I had recently somebody. So you see, he came with this problem. So I told you, Rapam said.
It's 7 p.m.
Say this name, and he said, but it's two names. His name is Yaakov Yeshua. Where am I going to find the Yaakov Yeshua? So I said, so that's what happened. I wrote Yaakov Yeshua. It popped up to Pnei Yeshua. Pnei Yeshua's name, I didn't know that. It was Yaakov Yeshua. So we used the Pnei Yeshua to give the name Yaakov Yeshua. It's a very nice twist. The only thing is, in the Sharblat, Yaakov Yeshua spelled Yud Vav Shin Ayin. I really didn't know. Did the printer do that? Or if Pnei Yeshua signed his name different, I don't know. So some of them, they didn't want like Yud and Hey. Sometimes it was the printer that didn't want to do it. I don't know. In the Agdama, his name is signed Yaakov Yeshua without a Hey. So I don't know what.
Sometimes Yehuda is written without a Hey too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know exactly that part of it, but. So years later, I had the following shiloh with a later child. I had a shiloh. For whatever reason, I was naming the child nothing at all to do with this relative. I was naming the child Shmuel. I have a son Shmuel. I should have be well. So I named Shmuel. Nothing at all. There was no shalom bayis issue with anything. The name was my first two children named on my side. The third name was the other side. Nothing to do. My mother had an uncle Sam. His name was Shmuel. A Tyree Yid. He came to America. He lived up in the 100 Overlook Terrace in the Heights, and he was a part of the community. And he was my mother's one uncle that she had. My great uncle, we used to call him Uncle Sam, and he always gave me toys and candies. And she said, "Great, you're naming him Shmuel. I'm going to call Aunt Fanny." The Almana she was already 90 years old at the time. And like I said, she lived 100 Overlook Terrace. And said, Mazel tov, we're going to name him Shmuel. So she got all excited. She came to the bris. At age 90, she came to the bris. So it was nice. And afterwards, she gave me a check for $500 for the bris. And this goes back over 30 years ago. So I told my wife, we can't cash the check. It's totally a mekatah. She assumes that we're naming after. So I didn't cash the check. A 90-year-old woman who lives in the Broyers community, understand, she calls me, you didn't cash the check. So I said, it doesn't always come through the first month. Next month, you didn't cash the check. So I didn't know what to do. So I told her, names are not for sale. I don't give names for money. Names are not for sale. So she said, no, I just felt so good. I came. How often do I go to a bris? I didn't know what to do. And I asked her Pam what to do. We said, wait 1 more month. I waited 1 more month, and again she called me. So at the end, her Pam said I could cash the check. I don't know exactly based on what. I mean, she said, I'm not doing it for the name. But, she just said it, so I don't know. But it was what? I don't want to insult her, but it's a little bit. The Gnevas Dasha boy bothers me. The Pseishus Terra Heter is a Heter. The Gnevas Dasha boy, it bothers me a little bit that you're fooling people into thinking. What? Give me a stock, it doesn't help. If I'm not taking, give me a stock, it doesn't help. Yeah. I grew up, I had Zaydis in this country because I have great-grandparents who came before World War I even. So I had a Zayda. The Zayda was nifta. We weren't sure his exact age. In those days, not everyone's age was exactly known. I think he was under 60, and we didn't know we should name after him, we shouldn't name after him. And we should add a name, we shouldn't add a name. So I had heard that Rabbi Yaakov had a sheet about this. Rabbi Yaakov was alive at the time. And I was very close with his son, Rabbi Avram, who lived here in Flatbush. So I called Rabbi Avram. I told him, I have a Zayda who lived, I don't know how old he was, and I'm not sure if I should name after him. I heard that your father has a sheet in it. He said, my father, he's sitting right here. He was visiting him at the time. So Rabbi Yaakov said, what's the name? So I told him the name. He said, yeah, mitarichas yam. After I told him the name, he said, yeah, mitarichas yam. So this son has a bracha of Arichas Yam, Baruch Hashem. And what does it mean? Why did he ask the name? Yam et Arichas Yam. So a little while later, I flew to Switzerland for a wedding, Reb Shmuel. This goes back 40 years ago. I flew to Switzerland to a cousin's wedding, a talmid of Reb Shmuel. Reb Shmuel was on the plane. So I was speaking to him. So I told him what was Reb Yaakov's cheshbon that he asked what the name is. So he said he doesn't know for sure. Reb Shmuel doesn't. He has to be clear. But Reb Yaakov held that names really go bust to the first one. All names, really, they go bust to the first one. So if it's not a Tanakh name, it's what are the Heintige, barrels and fivels, all these names. So there's no Tanakh name. This was a Tanakh name. And since the original person, we don't find that he wasn't Marach Yamim, so he felt that was good enough. That since the first one it's also a little bit of like a dual giving the name, the per de Zayda, and then the original one. Rav Pam Leisik Nasai said, I never saw someone who gave a name because of Shalom Bayis, a name he didn't want to give because of Shalom Bayis, that he didn't see Nachas. He told people that even though you have aversions to giving the name because of the person, if you're doing it out Shalom Bayis, that's the best bracha, and I guess that's the bottom line. People get a little carried away with names. I mean, the Gemara has such a shtak alosh and shmol gorim, but it's very, very hard to see that just giving a person's name by itself should have such ashpah. I don't know. One more thing Rapam did say over B'Shem the Chazanish always is that when you add a name, you're not naming after the person. The person's name was Avram, and you don't want to give his name, so you call him Avram Chai. So he said, you're not really naming after the person. Because if that person in his ksuba would have said Avram Chaim, it would have been possible. His name is Avram, not Avram Chaim. So it's a zecher to the person, but it's not truly naming. And naming after the person, the emes is to give a name straight. So we'll have to know exactly, like I said, Hilchos names. All the Svarim and Hilchos names of today's Lichud Svarim, there are very few early Makairis for it. But okay, at least here we have Pnei Yeshua that's a halacha l'maisa. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
You've just experienced another